Blackstone's Steve Schwarzman making news from the Future Investment Initiative Summit in Saudi Arabia, known as Davos in the desert, on a panel yesterday. He said part of the reason that it's difficult to get workers back to offices is because they aren't working as hard at home. He also pointed out that people profit from remote work because they save money on commutes, lunches, and work attire. Schwarzman said he expects companies to cut back on office space when their leases end and called some office properties not survivable at this point as economic entities. But he said newer office buildings were proving resilient and demand for warehouses continue to rise. Schwarzman said Blackstone executives and investment professionals are expected to be at their desk 5 days a week, kind of an anachronistic viewpoint from a guy in his 70s who's obviously, he's a square dude, but like me, yeah. I agree. You're at home, it's like, I wonder what's going on. Let me look at this. I can't imagine you work as hard at home. I mean, don't you need some? Why are there supervisors if you don't need to be supervised?
Look, I can think of some individuals or some careers where you don't need to be. If you're computer programming and the deal is turn in this project.
Do you think the computer programmer works as hard at home as he does in the office?
Yes.
Maybe he does.
Yes.
You do?
I think the programmer does, and maybe even more productive.
Right. Because you don't get stopped down bogged down by people who want...
He's just old-fashioned, Schwarzman.
I think in his industry...
But do you think there's any...
I think if you need to be in a meeting where you actually have to sit and
How about, but human nature?
Right.
You're at work where you're in a cubicle, the boss can walk by at any second and say... Versus,
you've been in cubicles. Do you know what we used to do when we sat next to each other in cubicles back in the office? We did the jumble. We had all kinds of stupid things.
Unless the supervisor came around, and then we. And then
you would terrorize them until they walked away.
Right. That's a skill. See, I can work here or at home and not do anything.
I would just say
I'm equally comfortable effing off either here or at home.
I would just say.
If you are in the business of having to create something, the programmer has to write something.
If you have a project you turn in.
You've been a proponent of... You write at home.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I find the actual act of writing easier to do in a solitary environment than around people.
Because you won't get anything done.
I think if you're in look, we're in a newsroom. When there's fast-breaking news and you want to actually be able to hear what one person's saying and be able to pull different strands together, then being in the newsroom is very valuable. If you were working on a longer form, a longer form piece, or if a programmer is working on actual code,
I think it's a small percentage of things does it play into. Most of the time, the camaraderie and the training and the I will say team spirit and everything else is better.
There are things that you can't.
People want you back, Andrew.
Right.
But he's saying 5 days a week.
5 days a week may be a stretch, but I think there are times, and I've noticed it even in our own, where we've had interactions with people or we've had meetings, we've gotten things done. It's been much more productive to have been able to say, hey, boom.
How about with people remote?
It makes a difference to have a guest here in the studio.
It's for us to be here.
But I also think the boss ultimately gets to have the say, and you are going to lose some talented people who don't want to go along with that if you're the boss. But if you're in a tight labor market, if you're in a tight labor market, the employees have more say. If you're in a weaker labor market, the boss has the ultimate say, and take it or leave it.
Can you say anachronistic?
I watched you slow down with that, and I understood why.
I had to.
Yeah.
I felt like I was having a mental lapse for a second, but you gotta, because it both starts with "and."
This is true. This is true.